Hey folks, today we're going to be talking about the philosophy around Crusader Kings 3 DLC and the age-old debate of free versus paid, and is the DLC worth paying for Crusader Kings? Now, I thought about doing this video because somebody left a comment recently in one of my videos saying that they played the game with all the DLC turned off after buying it all, and when they did that recently, they didn't really notice, to be honest, the difference between playing full DLC and the base game plus all the free patches. And it made me think about it, and that's why we're here today having a discussion. So as always, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here. We're just going to talk about it, and we can have the discussion in the comments down below. So if you are unaware, with Crusader Kings 3, we've talked about this a lot, the game studio did decide that any kind of main feature or mechanic would always be in the base game, so that they could avoid the issues that Crusader Kings 2 had, that Europa Universalis has, and that is where they can never really know, do all players have all the DLC? Many people don't have all the DLC, so they might have this mechanic, but they might be missing this other mechanic. I'm sure if you played either of those games, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, where it could be like a hodgepodge, basically, of people having some mechanics, people having not other ones, and then some mechanics pretty much got duplicated because of that reason, I think, where they could obviously see who bought which DLC. And I think at times they saw like, oh, this mechanic was pretty good, but it was in this DLC that wasn't bought, so we'll kind of redo it in this other DLC. And especially in EU4, you could see where there's so many mechanics kind of stacked on top of each other. And if you ever try and play that game unmodded, it is an absolute nightmare. And Crusader Kings 2 is pretty much the same. It's pretty bad if you ever try play it unmodded. And with that, they did come out with a philosophy before launch of CK3 saying that every kind of main feature mechanic should be in the base game so that they know everyone has it, and then they can build on top of that with DLC. And how well they've done that, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So what I thought we'd do first is just go through the major patches for the most part. I did miss off Northern Lords, mainly because it's a bit weird. It's a flavor pack, but it actually ended up being by far the worst flavor pack. I mean, even if you play in that region, it's pretty good content, but it's not as good as Fate of Iberia and Legacy of Persia content-wise, like the actual amount of content you got. So I've kind of missed that one off, but the first one we're going to look at is the Royal Court expansion pack. And let's have a look. You know, the expansion features, the Royal Court. Now, many people would say the game's better if you turn this off. And, you know, it's kind of hard to disagree with that sometimes. So, yep, you got the Royal Court with a paid expansion. You got Inspirations. I mean, it's okay. It's nothing too amazing, is it? Petition Liege, pay homage to your liege. I'm alright if I miss them out. Form hybrid cultures. Now, that is a cool feature. I would miss that if I didn't play with the DLC turned on, to be honest. Hybridizing cultures is pretty cool, and the same with diverging your culture as well. And also, on top of that, reforming your culture. These kind of culture mechanics, pretty cool. Now, we will see in the free patch, that is where, like, the bulk of the cultural overhaul happened. And that is one thing, if that had been in the DLC, that would have been horrific to play without, but it was part of the free patch. New council tasks, I don't think I ever choose to use any of these, to be honest. There are situations where they're good, but I generally don't use these ones anyway. New Dynasty Legacy Tree Customs is pretty good, Customs. It's not amazing, though. And new Portrait Assets, you know, it is what it is. We all play with the community flavor pack, so it doesn't really matter, to be honest, for that one. And then as we were looking at the free features, court positions, you get this as part of the free patch. It's not actually part of the Royal Court itself. The cultural overhaul, as I said, this was amazing. And this is one feature that is so cool they did add to the free patch. Personal languages, take it or leave it. The new steward task, the artifacts inventory system, again, that was part of the free DLC. Steal artifact scheme, challenge for artifact duel. I mean, some of us would rather this just didn't exist, but it was part of the free patch, so it's fine. Commission artifact, coat of arms designer, and then a bunch of smaller things as well. So as you can see with the Royal Court DLC, kind of the best stuff was in the free patch. There are some things obviously in the paid features that I would miss if they weren't there, but not that many, to be honest. The Royal Court itself has a lot of issues. Now, it is cool if you did miss it in one of the recent dev diaries. They did say they're going to go back in and basically redo all the events around the Royal Court because they've got that feedback many, many times that the events are boring and repetitive and usually harm you more than actually give you anything. So they have already said they're going to go back and redo them. So kudos, to be honest, for them saying that and actually going back and redoing an old feature of a DLC. And that is the Royal Court. Like I say, a bit of a mixed bag, but I could see if you have that turned off, you wouldn't really miss that much of it, to be honest. The next one we've got is the Fate of Iberia flavor pack. Now, the paid part for this was pretty much just the Fate of Iberia struggle, which obviously, if you don't play in Iberia, you don't encounter anyway. And if you're playing in Iberia, you probably bought the DLC. So it's a bit of a weird one. If you bought the DLC, yeah, the flavor pack features are great if you play in Iberia. If you're not going to play in Iberia, you probably weren't going to buy this anyway, so it doesn't really matter. There are some things in there that do affect like other things outside of Iberia, but there really isn't that many. most of the stuff in here did. And as we continue to see, their philosophy of giving us the features of that for free in the base version really did pay off here. This brought the struggle system in. Yes, I know some of you really dislike the struggle system, but it was brought in here and it was part of the free patch. The actual struggle system itself, the Fate of Iberia specific struggle, that was paid, but the actual system itself was free. So this has been able to be used on some fantastic mods out there that have really, really good use of the struggle system. Now, the free features, again, this was focused on Iberia, so not really that much outside of Iberia again. A lot of it just around there, bringing in the Mozarabic Christianity faith, adding the right tenant, changing some of the faith stuff around there. One cool thing as well is having several faiths can now have the same head of faith, so that was pretty cool as well. Allowed the Pope to have the head of faith of different religions, not just Catholicism, so that was cool as well. But with it being a flavor pack, I mean, it was a mixed bag. If you had this turned off and you're not playing in Iberia, well, there was nothing really for you to miss anyway. So it's a bit of a weird one, but, you know, overall a great DLC, but only if you're really playing in Iberia. So, you know, I could see how people could turn this off, and if you weren't playing in Iberia, it wouldn't really matter. If you were playing in Iberia, you still got some of the updates here with the faiths and some other cool stuff as well. So again, playing in Iberia was still better, but obviously you are missing the paid bit, which, as I said, was the reason to buy the DLC in the first place. And then the next one after that, we have got Tours and Tournaments. Now this one, same with the Royal Court and expansion. And again, very much like the Royal Court, I would say the paid expansion features, if you had those turned off, you're not really going to miss them that much. Now they are pretty cool, they're fun to play, but the free features was really where this DLC was. And again, fantastically, this is like Crusader Kings 2.0 to me. This changed the game. It's kind of underrated, I think, how much this did change the game. Probably not on places like Reddit, etc., where we all hang out and kind of talk rubbish about Crusader Kings. But I think outside in like the wider kind of grand strategy sphere, I guess, I don't think people realize how much Tours and Tournaments changed Crusader Kings for the better. So overall, fantastic. But let's have a look. The expansion features, grand activities. These are awesome. But to be honest, how often do you do them? I don't do them every campaign, and even if I do, they're fantastic, but I don't generally miss them if I don't do them. They are really, really good. They actually got a nerf, actually, in the recent patch, but they're not game-breaking activities on top of the normal ones. We've got activity, intents, and options. Again, if you didn't have these, not the end of the world. Murder feasts are fantastic. They are awesome to do, but again, how often do you actually do a murder feast? Not very often. It is quite hard to actually get them done. Falconry hunts, well, you could just do the other hunt. You're not really missing anything overall. Accolades, I mean, look, let's not even get started on accolades. We'll just leave it there. The activities, Dynasty Legacy, now that one is cool. That is really good, but again, if you're missing the grand activities, kind of negates how good that is anyway. And then a bunch of new character art. So as you can see, the expansion features, they are good. They definitely lean on the Tours and Tournaments thing, which again, is kind of the point they made when it came to DLC. They wanted to have all the base stuff in the free patch, and then kind of like the icing and the cherry on top is all the expansion features. But is this enough of that to kind of justify the cost of the DLC? Especially when it's an expansion, they are more expensive than the flavor packs and the other DLC that we get. These are full expansions. So, you know, I would say there's a lot of cool stuff here, but you really were paying for the free features, which is good because if no one bought any of the DLC, we just wouldn't get any more DLC. But anyway, onto the free features. As you can see, an absolute ton of them. So much cool stuff here. Regencies, you know, attempted coups by your regent, the travel system, allowing you to travel around the map. That is such a huge part of playing Crusader Kings now, and that was part of the free patch. 130 events tied to that. Yes, there should be more events, and they have again said they're going to be adding more in the future, but that did add a lot of content to the game. And obviously everything around that as well, being able to pick your travel route, customize where you went, all that kind of stuff. Your character now has a bona fide location on the map. You can actually see him on the map, and it's so cool, this feature. If they had, like in Crusader Kings 2, locked this behind paid DLC, it would be horrific, but thankfully, as we've seen, they did do that. It also added the vassal stances, so your vassal now has like a stance based on their personality. Different things that you do can affect them positively or negatively. And then outside of that, just a bunch of smaller things. Added the nickname system finally, so you could get the able, the fat, the terrible, the careless, etc. You know, that is a bit of like fluff on the end, but it is quite flavorful adding it in and getting those little names pop up now and then. And then, as I said, outside of that, just a bunch of smaller stuff, but you can see from the list, you know, there's a lot here. There's a lot of free things in here that came as part of the patch. And I would be remiss to say as well that this was when achievements were allowed to be activated, even with non-Iron Man single-player games. So this allowed you to use mods and still get achievements, which was worth the patch all on its own, to be honest. That was such a cool addition to the game, allowing you to play with things like the community flavor pack without losing the ability to get achievements. Was such a fantastic change. So as you can see there, Tours of Tournaments, an amazing expansion, but if you turn off the expansion features, are you missing that much? I'd say probably not. Yes, you will miss those things, but to be honest, I trade losing grand activities to also lose accolades, but that's just me. I did a video about that about a month ago on the channel. If you are interested, do you get your money's worth with the expansion features? It's a toss-up, to be honest, with Tours and Tournaments. And then after Tours and Tournaments, we obviously got Legacy of Persia. This was a flavor pack, so again, very focused on Persia, but as we will see with the free features, brought a lot of stuff outside of Persia, which was, to be honest, I think where most people get their enjoyment out of Legacy of Persia. I will say myself, I have played the content from this, probably the least out of all the DLCs. I've probably played Fate of Iberia content, like played in Iberia, way more than I've played in Persia. And that's not saying this DLC is bad, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't draw me in as the other ones do. But as we'll see, the free features more than make up for that. So we obviously got the Iranian struggle, which was a good kind of redo of how the struggle worked in Iberia. They did do a lot of changes to the struggle system for this, and I think it does work better. It did also then add a Dynasty Legacy Brilliance, which was all around Persia. So if you don't play in Persia, again, you're not really getting much out of that. It also added a new UI skin for Iranian heritage cultures, which is very nice. But obviously, if you play outside of those cultures, you're not really getting anything. And to be honest, with everything else, a lot of stuff around Persia, which again, if you're playing in Persia, fantastic. If you're not playing in Persia, even if you have this activated, you're basically getting none of these features for the most part. It's very much like the Fate of Iberia one, where with it being a flavor pack, if you don't play there, you're kind of missing everything anyway. But that was kind of the point of the flavor packs. If you're wanting to play there, you'd buy it and you get that content. Now, the free features, to say this was a flavor pack, it actually had a huge change with it, and that was the House Unity system for clan governments. This makes playing as a clan realm so much more interesting. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you actually like the way they implemented this? I think it does make it a lot more interesting. There's a bunch of cool features, viziers, the kind of tax systems and things like that around it, where it really wasn't that different from playing the other kinds of government. This definitely changed how they work, and I thought brought a lot of cool mechanics. And again, part of the free update. It also brought in some changes to the Seljuk dynasty, making them actually invade Iran at the right time and kind of see what happens there. And it did also add a bunch of other stuff in there, a lot of special buildings. Again, though, if you didn't play in Persia, they weren't useful to you. But if you did play in Persia, even without the DLC, you did get all these additional special buildings as well. So that is cool. And you got the clan governments. So again, was the paid part of this worth it? I think it was if you played in Persia. But as we said again with Iberia, if you didn't play there, it doesn't really matter, to be honest. It's not really kind of like an even match towards like game-wide expansions. But we did get a lot of the free features. So again, if I turn this off, would I notice it? Obviously, if I played in Persia, I would. But if I played everywhere else, I wouldn't at all. And then the latest one, Legends of the Dead. Now, this is a weird one. This is, I think, where they kind of moved away from it a little bit with having all features in the base game. Now, technically they are. This added Legends, the whole system, so all around how Legends work. Is this a good system or not? We can have that comment down below. I know some people like it, some people don't. It's had a lot of balancing recently. I think it's quite a good system, to be honest. It isn't kind of everything I thought it might be, but I do think it is a cool addition. It gives you something to play towards, and it is a good money sink as well, which is one thing we do need more of in this game. So overall, a fantastic feature. Added the Black Death event chain, so if you don't have the expansion, you obviously still have diseases and everything around that, but if you have the DLC, you do get the Black Death, kind of a special version with special art, music, content, and effects and all that stuff. So if you do want the Black Death to be its best, you do need to have it. They also added some new diseases. Now, this was one thing when I covered the patch notes, as I always do on the channel, I actually very much disagreed with this. The locked behind the expansion features were Holy Fire, the Bloody Flux, and Measles were added as diseases. I thought this was really odd that like certain versions of diseases and plagues were kind of locked behind DLC. Now, it's not the end of the world. All the other versions of plagues and diseases work on the kind of new plague system, so it's not crazy, but I did think it was a little bit weird that they locked like 3 versions of them behind a DLC paywall. I thought it was a little bit odd, to be honest. And then outside of that, some new clothing and everything like that. As I said before, the community flavor pack covers that for most people. It did also add the funeral activity, which, to be honest, is a cool event. I do like that. That is a cool feature of the DLC. Some legendary feast options and some other things as well. Nothing too crazy. Added some new building types. Added a new map table, which with this brought along the kind of like zoomed out you can see the map on an actual table. Well, not an actual table, but you know what I mean. This brought a special version of that if you had the DLC. So as you can see, the expansion feature is pretty good. It is weird, I guess, going against their system, as I said, that the Legends system was paid for, but I guess if it wasn't, there'd be no expansion features, basically. So I can kind of see why they did lock it behind it, as they did. And then the free features, Plagues, the entire Plague system, again, we could go into the arguments down below. Is it good? Is it bad? I think the Plague system is pretty good. I think it's actually been nerfed too much now, but that's a topic for another video. But all of that, everything around it was added as a free feature, and this is one thing that can be modded. You can mod this into other things, and it's crazy, to be honest, the things I've seen. You can have magic systems and things built around this system instead, where instead of a plague being spread, it's like magic going out into the world. And it's so cool that that was part of the free features. Added elderly and child health, making it harder to play as younger and older children. New disease game rules, this allowed you to kind of change when things happened. Added legitimacy. Now, legitimacy, to be honest, I'm kind of surprised this wasn't part of the paid features. It's a really good system. I think it's probably the best of the three that came in here. It is a little bit, I guess, generic how it works, with just it being kind of flat bonuses or flat negatives to your character. But it does make playing as a new character a lot more interesting. You have got to think about how legitimate you're going to be and then build that up as quick as you can. And then if you can build it up really high, it actually unlocks a lot of cool gameplay, being able to found titles easier, being able to do wars easier, all that kind of stuff, get good alliances, get good marriages. It's really, really cool. I think it is, as I said, probably the best of the three. Even with kind of how small it is as a system, I actually really, really like it. It added new faith doctrines, new cultural traditions, and then obviously a bunch of other things like new music and new map modes and all that kind of stuff as well. So the free features in Legends of the Dead, fantastic. So to be honest, if you turn off the expansion, what are you missing? You're missing Legends. Now I would miss that if I turn that off. I'd also miss the Black Death event chain and everything that happens around that. I think it does bring a lot of flavor to the Black Death. I think this does work as a good version of a paid bit of content versus the base, because the base does get all the diseases, but then kind of that like extra bit is the Black Death getting a special event, special music, content and effects, quest line and everything like that. So I think this is a cool way to do it, kind of split that out a little bit. Now obviously we'd like everything to be part of the free DLC, but then the game wouldn't really exist anymore because we only get new DLC because people buy the old DLC. So some things have got to get split out. I think this is the best way to do it though, with this kind of way. Again, to go against that, as I said before, the 3 diseases that were locked behind the paywall, I'm not too sure about that working that way. Would I miss the additional clothing? Nope, as we've discussed already. The funeral activity I would do. The new legendary feast options, probably wouldn't miss that much. And then outside, the other things in here, again, I probably wouldn't miss too much if I had them turned off. Now, what I will say is, added all together, I think I would notice that I turned off all the DLC. Like, as we've gone through this list, I think there's enough here that if I turned all the DLC off, I would miss some things. I would know I was missing the DLCs. There's enough from each one of these that would affect it. And obviously, especially if you're playing Iberia or Persia, you definitely would notice you had the DLC turned off. But outside of that, I think you would, with everything combined together, notice that. But would it be enough? Now, that was what the person said who left the comment, like, I don't feel I got my money's worth now, looking back at it. When I turn off the DLC, has it been worth the amount of money I spent on the DLC versus if I just played the free features with every patch? And to be honest, that is one of those questions that I can't answer. For myself, I think it probably has been. I'm in a bit of a weird thing, though, where the DLC is really, really good for the channel. So obviously I buy it all the time. I obviously notice it a lot because I concentrate on that when I do Let's Plays and when I do live streams and things like that on the channel. I obviously notice the DLC stuff because I'm looking to do that, to show it off to you all, so then you can decide if you want to play it or not, if you want to buy it, put over your hard-earned money to get this extra content. So it is a bit skewed for me as to whether it's worth it or not. I'd say it has been. It is quite a bit of money, obviously, but to be honest, I played this game so much. I've got over 1,100 hours in it. Now, obviously, that is skewed again for me because I play it on the channel. I do a lot of recording on this, and I've done some AI-onlys and stuff like that, which has bloated that number a bit. But, you know, there's many of you probably watching this video that's probably played as many hours as that, probably even more than that, to be honest. And I think if you have played it that much, it has been worth paying for. I'd say if you are more of a casual player of Crusader Kings, has it been worth it? I'd say maybe not, to be honest. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. I think if you are more of a casual player, you just dip in every so often, play a campaign, come back in a couple of months, play another campaign or something like that. I'd say probably not, or maybe it has. Like I say, I'm not in that situation, so I can't really guess, really. as to whether that is what you think. As I said, we'll talk about it in the comments down below. But overall, I think it has been worth it. I will say in one of the latest dev diaries, 147, which is where they kind of gave a retrospective on the DLC that had come out so far for the game, they did say in there that they are going to lean more towards the paid features from Roads to Power and beyond. And we'll see very soon. This video comes out the day before the announcement of the launch day for that DLC. So we will find out pretty soon what is going to be locked behind the paid part of that DLC and what is going to be locked behind the free part of it. Now, when that DLC got announced, we had a discussion on the channel, obviously, in the video where I covered it about what I thought would be locked behind the DLC. And there's been some kind of backwards and forwards from us, what we think is or isn't. I wouldn't be surprised if landless gameplay is locked behind DLC, and then also the Byzantine specific rework is also locked behind the DLC, and the free patch gets the kind of redone systems that are kind of the base of the Byzantine stuff, so you will get those effects elsewhere. But then the actual landless gameplay, I think the actual playable side of that may be locked behind DLC. You'll get some of the systems, obviously, that build it on the map if you play for free, but you won't actually be able to use them yourself. I think you'll see other landless characters around, but you won't be able to play them yourself, don't have the DLC. Now, I could be wrong with that. It could be where they have a basic version of the landless character, and then all the cool, like, additional events, maybe certain situations you can get yourself into are part of the paid DLC. Again, we'll find out soon enough, so there's no point going into it too much here, but as they did say in that post that more of it is going to go towards the paid DLC, it is going to be interesting to see how much that is the case. Like, do they keep to that, not promise, I won't say, but where they did say that they wanted base features to be in the base game and then everything kind of like on top of that feature to be the paid DLC. And as we've seen, going over that quick look at the DLCs, I think they've roughly kept that for the most part. We will see if that continues. But anyway, this video's gone on long enough already. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Something a little bit different. I like doing these kind of like unscripted discussion videos where I just ramble on about something, and then we generally have a good chat about it down below. So let me know what you think. Hit that like button, subscribe if you are new here. As I said, the Roads to Power DLC release date is tomorrow, so we'll find about that. And then obviously I'll be covering all the dev diaries up to a launch, beyond, and then everything coming in the future. And I also cover a lot of EU5. That is, if you're unaware, has been kind of secretly announced by Paradox, and they're covering it in some dev diaries. And that will get an official announcement at some point this year, I would think, and then probably release in a year or so. So I am covering that as well on the channel. As you've no doubt seen if you're subscribed, been a lot of stuff about EU5 recently. So it's kind of cool to come back to Crusader Kings and talk about it a little bit, but we will get a lot of dev diary stuff coming soon. But anyway, that is going to be it for today. I'll see you in the next one.